This is Unmuted with my girls, Z and Ross the Boss. Talk about it, ladies.
Hello, family and friends. Welcome to another episode of Unmuted with your girl Z and with your girl Roz the Boss.
Hey y'all. Hey family. What's up? I don't know.
First,
That's what
I
I
don't know
felt.
what was that. That was a new
I
one.
don't know. I felt it. I just let it happen.
If you felt it,
Yep.
then we're gonna do what we feel in this episode
Mm-hmm.
because why not?
Period.
So today, I know that we always say the same. You're in for a treat. I know, but hear me out. Hear me out. You're really in for a treat today because you're gonna meet an amazing human that Shamel just speaks so highly about. So I am gonna let her introduce her. I'm not gonna steal that spotlight for my friend Roz the Boss. I'll let her introduce her first. Then we're gonna check up on each other, and then we're gonna get started so you all can get to know a little bit more about the amazing human that is Nicole. So without further ado, let me send it over to my friend Roz the Boss and help us introduce our special guest.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Z. And it is true. We do get excited about all of the guests that we have on. But this one right here, near and dear to my heart. This, when you said a special human, complete and utter understatement. I'm debating now how I want to introduce Nicole because her backstory and her resume, that is a part of her story. But I think I want to tell the true story of how Nicole and I met and the first thing that Nicole said to me.
Go for it.
You see, she's laughing. You see,
See,
I
those
broke it. I broke it
okay.
just that.
Those are the best stories.
Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Yeah, she's laughing because it was diabolical. Okay. So Nicole and I met, and the introduction went a little something like this. Oh my goodness, it's really nice to meet you. Please understand that I work in poison control and I know various ways to take you out, and people would not know.
Mm.
Ma'am, what? Hi. Um,
What an intro.
was it her? What do you say to that? Like, what do you say to that? Right. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. And she was just like, I kind of just hope that you're a good person. Cause if you're not,
You might not be
do
here
with
for
what
that
you
much
want.
longer.
Yeah. Do what you want with the information I just provided you. Ma'am.
What a statement, though. What a statement. Who wants to
it,
backstab that?
I have been on my P's and Q's ever since. So that was my introduction to Nicole. And um, from that introduction, it is beautiful to see how our relationship has grown in the years since. We met a little bit before COVID hit, and then we had the pleasure of spending a lot of time together during the years of COVID and getting to know each other better, and have moved from just being friends with Nicole and her family are 100% my family as well. So I am super excited about this episode because, again, it is like having a family member on the podcast. I know that you all got to meet some of my other really close friends and family, but this one right here is special because how many people have threatened to take you out and then they just become, people who you can't live without now. So, Nicole, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. You're an amazing human, and I love you to the moon and back.
You're gonna make me cry. You're gonna make me
That's
cry. Thank
allowed.
you for
That's
having me
allowed.
here.
That's allowed here. Cries, laughs, everything.
All the
And
emotions, all
Shammy
the
is
emotions.
my ride or die too. So,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
know that whatever happens, she's got me
Mm-hmm.
and I got her.
Mm-hmm.
So it works out. She
Yeah,
doesn't have to worry
Nicole.
so much about the poisoning.
But y'all do. Y'all got to worry about it. I don't.
Yeah.
Bang. I understand that. Nicole, I was thinking about it too because for the people who are listening, we in our advertisements we always have pictures of the guests that we have on, or me and Z. I definitely think we should have our fur picture as the advertisement picture.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Mhm.
good picture of us. So,
It's a
yeah,
good
so we
picture.
have options. We have options. So, again, thank you
Okay.
so much, Nicole, for being on the podcast. And we're going to get into the meat and potatoes a little bit later. But as y'all know, before we kick it off, Z, go ahead and ask the question.
So, Nicole, since you're our special guest, tell us, how is your heart feeling today?
How's my heart feeling today? Well, sweaty. It's a little bit hot here.
That's a new one, but I love it.
Yeah, I'm a little bit melted, so but it's I love the summer, so I'm not truly complaining about it. I'll just wallow in my sweat. Good.
Hmm. She's feeling a little swampy. A little swampy.
It's okay. We've all been there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Ms. Raida Estrada, how is your heart today, friend?
Um, how is my heart today? I am a little sweaty, but right now I'm under the AC, so it's feeling a little cool. But overall, I'm just excited because I have a 14-year-old already. So happy belated birthday to my daughter Desiree, who has turned 14. I've already been down this road, so I already know how this turns out. But still very blessed and very happy. I can't complain. I can't complain. I have healthy children, healthy family. So my heart is feeling great. My pocket's not so much, but
And
that's another story. If you know, you know.
mhm,
If you know, you
mhm.
know. Um,
Listen, before we get in there, happy birthday to my girl Desiree, my Cancerian sister. Go off. And Z, you just need to start selling some socks or something to make it shake. But what you will never do is tell Desiree that she's hitting your pockets too hard because she's not hitting them hard enough.
I don't think she
Go off,
cares,
Desiree.
to be
Yeah,
honest, but
and she shouldn't. She
yeah.
shouldn't.
She
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 should.
she
She
dreams
should.
big.
Come on, dream big. How is my heart? I am really, really good today. I think last week we were talking about how I was feeling a little under the weather. I was definitely feeling that a little bit yesterday, and today I don't know where this extra like little boost of energy came from. So I'm trying to like control it and not give too much, but then at the same time trying to like clean the house while I feel like it. Um,
Mm.
so so that feels really good because I hate to be in a disgusting house. I can't do it, Jesus. So just put it, and it's not even that the house is disgusting. I just need to put things away. Um, but I'm feeling really good, and I'm really, really excited about this episode today.
Awesome. Sounds like the atmosphere is where it needs to be. We're all feeling good, so this has to be like an amazing episode. So,
Hmm.
Nicole,
Hmm.
I don't know if you've been listening to the podcast, but we're going to put you in the hot seat for a little bit with some fun rapid fire questions. So, we're going to ask you a few questions. It's just to kind of get the nerves out of the way. And then we'll get into the meat and potatoes. So, Roz the boss, you want to take this one away?
All right, girl dogs or boy dogs?
Mhm. So girl dogs are smarter, but boy dogs love you more. So kind of depends how cuddly you want to be. Right now I have a boy dog, so I'm going with boy dogs.
Okay, great, great. I knew that was going to be the answer. All right,
Okay.
Z.
Are you a more of a coffee person or a tea person?
Coffee for sure.
Smart woman. I mean, I like both, but
Yeah.
Hmm.
you have to have coffee.
That's how I made it through, I don't know, the first 50 years of my life. Mainlining the coffee.
You see, Ross the boss?
Hmm. 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 I don't do coffee.
Exactly.
So
No?
every time Nicole and I are together, they're just like, coffee's ready. And I was like, that's great. Y'all enjoy. Um, all right, Nicole, you ready?
Yeah.
Wade in the water or deep sea diver?
Oh, deep sea diver for sure. Gotta get all the way in
Hmm.
there. Just
Hmm.
run in all at once. Don't try to like dip a toe in, and it's just more painful that way. Just jump in.
That's true. I have to agree
Hmm.
with that. I think we already know this, but are you more of a summer, spring, fall, winter baby? What would you consider yourself?
I hate being cold, so it's summer all the way. I wish it was 80 degrees all the time. But I didn't move far enough south.
Okay, this is going to be a difficult question for you. So I want you to
Oh
sit
no.
with it. New York or Virginia?
So I'm going to say Virginia because it snows way less than in New York. Um, but I will say that July and August in Western New York is pretty glorious. So, I could be convinced for a little while to go back up.
Nice, nice. So, for those, you will learn it a little later. Nicole represents Buffalo real heavy and real hard. And so when you think New York, most
I mean, but
well,
sure.
I mean, but most people just when they holler out New York, they want people to assume that they mean the city. But when you talk about New York, you are very clear of no, 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 Buffalo. Yeah.
As she
Mhm.
should be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. So the last question for all of our family and friends out there that want to know, if you had to binge watch a show right now, which one would it be?
I'm between shows at the moment. What was the last one we just binge watched Hacks, and that was actually really good on HBO. So highly
Come on,
recommend.
premium channels.
Hilarious.
Come on, premium
Well,
channels. Premium channels.
not Netflix.
Well,
Max. No,
Mm-mm.
to be fair, Max has some HBO Max has some really good series. To be fair,
I know there's a
they
few that
do.
I need to like invest a little time in right now. So
Okay, okay. So the speed round is done, wrapped. Nicole, are you feeling warmed up? Are you feeling comfortable? Tell me what the vibe is for you right now.
well, I'm always a little bit twitchy. I'm okay. It's my usual self. I'm just sitting here bouncing around. So,
Nice. Nice, nice. But no, nerves shaking off though. So let's get a good shake on and let's just get to it. Little shake, little shake, little shake, shake it off. Good, good, good. And let's get into the meat and potato section of the conversation. Unmuted with
yeah.
Z and Ross the boss. Nicole was a perfect guest for today's episode. Because we let you all know last week that um, it is Disability Pride Month, right? And one of the things that Z and I wanted to do was to talk about disabilities in a different way, right? So, um, a lot of times people only see disabilities as the visual ones. So, hey, you're in a wheelchair. They're looking for you to have, things that are helping you to sustain life. If you don't have that, then all of a sudden there's a question like, well, what's wrong with you? Because I don't see, anything happening with you. But there are a lot of people who navigate the world under the radar of some of those biases that people have for people who live with disabilities. And I remember getting to know Nicole and just hearing some of her story of um, her diagnosis and the story that led to it, and then how she navigated and advocates for herself. And when I say advocates for herself, she is the ultimate warrior when it comes to that. And I know that that will come out in her story. But it was really important. And when we reached out and started thinking about guests, I was like, I have a perfect one. Because the nuances to her story, not only as someone who lives with a diagnosis, but also somebody who is a nurse and is educated to know like what exactly the doctors were talking about when she got her diagnosis, right? Because a lot of us are just, I know when I got diagnosed with diabetes and they were just like, your A1C. I was like, I don't even know what that is. And they were just like, your number is 21. I was like, well, what is it supposed to be? I had no idea of like what was supposed to happen, what the outcomes were. But just hearing from Nicole, her story and how she, um, navigated from the time she was diagnosed to where she is now. And her activism behind it is such a beautiful story. So I was like, it's a no brainer that I need to have my sis on the podcast today. So again, thank you, Nicole, for the story that I know that you are going to tell and the education that you're about to bestow on the folks who are listening today. So thank you so much.
Oh gosh. Thanks for having me.
Mhm.
But I do want to say up front that like my experience is not the same, not everybody's experience. And, my journey is not everybody's journey. And so I don't speak for everybody, who has been diagnosed with a chronic illness or or in my case, pulmonary hypertension. So, we're all different and it shows up differently in all of our lives. So,
Yep, absolutely. So, Nicole, doll baby, you was out here, thriving and living. I know that when we talk about your education, we were, I was referencing, the fact that you went to school. Again, shout out to Buffalo. Could you share a little bit of your educational background for the family and friends that are listening?
yeah, so I didn't start out as a nurse. I started out going to University at Buffalo and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And back in the olden times when I started going to college, there was no internet that you signed up for classes. You had to do it by phone. And the way that you did it was like to punch in the course numbers and stuff like that. But also or you had to stand in line at the arena on campus to sign up physically for a class. And they did it by alphabetical order. And so my last name is in the end of the alphabet. And so by the time I got there, there weren't that many classes left. So here I am taking like psychology 101 and philosophy 101 and geography 101. And I'm like, geography, what's that? So, and everybody will always ask you, what's the capital of Botswana? And you're like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I ended up taking a lot of geography courses because I couldn't get into a lot of other ones. So by the time my, junior and senior years roll around, I have a lot of geography courses. So I guess I'm getting a degree in geography, whether I want to or not. so,
Wow.
so that's what I did. And, I learned how to do like mapping and using all the software that was coming out at the time and that stuff. And then I decided, the job market in Western New York is not great for geographers. I know, shocking to imagine. And and so
Didn't even know that was a
Yeah, I
thing.
didn't
Can
know
you
that was
do
a
that?
thing.
nobody knows.
Are they the ones that work for National Geographics, maybe?
Sometimes, yep. They actually every year they would post like you could go on these trips with the National Geographic team and like, learn stuff and whatever, but they were very expensive to do. So
No.
so anyway, I moved down to the Washington D.C. area because I thought, well, the government's down there. They like cartographers, they like maps. And so maybe they'll have some idea of what I do. So so I moved down, and with my boyfriend at the time, I didn't have a job. I didn't have an apartment. I didn't have any friends down there. I didn't have any family down there. And yeah, I just kind of like picked up and moved and thought, oh God, okay, what did I do? And then, a week after I moved down there, 9/11 happened. And so aside from the national and regional tragedy that we had, I actually could see the Pentagon burn from my apartment, my bedroom window. You know, the implications then for, okay, well, what's going to happen now? Are we at war? Is there going to be any role for, a job market around here? Am I going to be able to support myself? And so it was, pretty scary time for everybody. But um, it just the timing was kind of frightening for me overall. So I ended up, it didn't take too long. I did find a job, and I worked in fair housing for a while. And so I did both the urban and the rural side of things, working for a number of different nonprofits. And I really enjoyed it. I had a great time. I learned so much. I'm so indebted to the people. I mean, I put siding on a house. Who knew that I could do such a thing? And I was able to do it. So, but there,
Nice.
there's a lot of other things that went along with it, including like convincing our lawmakers that putting people in housing is worthwhile and that we need to do that
Mhm.
on a larger scale. And, helping people navigate the process so that, they're not kind of pushed into a loan that they can't handle, or getting confused by all of the rules and laws that happen around home ownership. So I did that for a while. And, after a couple of years, I was just kind of looking around to see what else was out there. And I happened along a research position for an association that helped sort of navigate the legal landscape. I interviewed and I got the job. And so I worked there for a while, and, I learned so much about toxicology, and I got kind of sucked in. I really thought it was it was something that could be really fun.
No, I just said poisoning.
Oh, poisoning.
Mhm.
Yeah. So at one point, I was getting ready to move on from that position. And the woman who had hired me, she was actually running a poison control at the time. And she said, well, if you want to go back to school and become a nurse or a pharmacist or a PA, you always have a job here. And I applied to nursing school and I got in. And so that is the roundabout way that I became a nurse. And I went to George Mason University for nursing school in Virginia, and I learned so much. And it really stretched me in a lot of ways. I was terrified of like patient care and people, and I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I think I learned how to connect a little bit better with people. And they're having the worst day of their life if they're in a hospital, right? And that may be turning into the worst week of their life, the worst month of their life. And I think that you connect with people on a different level when you're taking care of them. And I did learn so much doing that. So then I started working for the Poison Control Center as a nurse. They trained me in toxicology. I eventually went on to become board certified in toxicology. And of course, because I do everything the hard way, I did that the hard way as well. The board certification is really designed for pharmacists, and I was not a pharmacist. I didn't get all of the education in school that a pharmacist would get, so I had to kind of learn it for myself. And there's like a giant book of toxicology that they, like you to read when you start working there. And my boss put it down on the table and said, here, memorize this. And I laughed because I thought she was kidding, and she wasn't kidding. So I definitely had to learn. That book followed me around for years so that I could learn how to do it. And, I learned, I used to be terrified of maybe, talking to people on the phone. Like, what if I freeze up and I don't know what to say? And I think that helped me a lot with, kind of figuring out a puzzle, because a lot of these things are puzzles, like what happened, how did people end up calling me? And so we help them decide, is it something that we can watch at home and you're going to be safe, that maybe have some symptoms but you're going to be okay, or is it something where you really need to go to the hospital and get monitored and treated? And so I learned how to do that, and I thoroughly enjoyed working on the phones. I did that for 12 years. And then I kind of moved more into the administrative side of things. And, I have to say that probably my first love is the toxicology and the patient care part of it. But I did learn a lot through administration too, particularly that administration is really not my favorite. So you're the boss.
Yeah. Well, duh.
Ross the
I don't
boss.
have the book though. I don't have
It's
the
right in
book
the name.
though.
It's right in the name, Ross the boss. So
Absolutely.
that's sort of how I wound up in nursing. I didn't know what I was doing.
Hey, I think a lot
I
of
ended up
us
really
can
enjoying it.
a lot of us can relate with you that we didn't know. So you're out there, if you're out there listening about you're trying to figure out college, you're trying to figure out your next job, you're not alone. It happens to a lot of
That
us.
journey is not going to be linear, and you're going to fall and roll down that hill and smash into something at the bottom. So
This is getting very intense and dark, but at the same time, if you needed help, she could also, guide you on how to bandage yourself up if you fall down that hill and you need medical assistance.
I mean,
just get up, dust yourself off.
it'll be fine,
You'll get
see?
there. Yeah, everything's going to be fine.
So Nicole, you are bebopping, you went from trying to map out things here in these, continental United States to helping to map out things in people's bodies. And you're just plugging along, living life, living the dream, figuring things out in Northern Virginia. And then there was a pivot. What happened?
Yeah. So I got married second time, and I was fine. I was about to turn 40, and I thought, okay, I'm maybe a little overweight, but I'm otherwise okay. And I was bebopping around, getting stuff done. Had a wedding. It was fun. We had a great time. Got to have my friends and family there. Really enjoyed it. And then I got home, and 2 weeks after that, I was walking up the stairs with a basket of laundry, and I had to stop midway. I could not catch my breath. And I thought, gosh, I turned 40, but come on, I feel terrible. Like, this isn't normal. And to be honest, for a long time, I had been going to doctors and saying, I don't feel well. I don't feel well. I'm tired all the time. I'm gaining weight. And of course they just tell you, well, you're just a little fat. Just, lose some weight and you'll feel a lot better. Exercise more, you'll feel better. Oh, you're a nurse? Oh my gosh, that's a hard job. No wonder you're exhausted. Oh, you work night shift? Oh my gosh, no wonder. This is all your job. You need to start taking better care of yourself, in your off hours, and making sure that you get enough rest and exercise. And okay, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think that's probably part of what's going on with me. But I know a lot of people my age who don't have trouble walking up the stairs. Some of them who are, probably in worse shape than I am physically. And so what the heck's going on here? So I thought, okay, well, what could that be? It's probably cardiac, right? So I thought, okay, I'm going to make an appointment with a cardiologist. So I made an appointment, and of course, healthcare, they're just booked solid for months on end. So it was a month before I could get in to see her. And I almost canceled that appointment because I was actually starting to feel a little bit better about a month later. And I'm really glad that I just said to myself, you know what, just go. I mean, you made the appointment, you've had it for a month, you have the insurance to, pay for the visit. It's okay, just go. And that decision saved my life. Um, I went to see her, and, they do an EKG when you first get there. And she comes in, and she's looking at the paper, and she's looking at me, and she's looking at the paper and looking back at me. And she says, if you weren't sitting here in front of me talking to me, I would think you were having a massive heart attack. And I thought, oh, well, that's new. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that information? I don't feel like I'm having a heart attack. And she says, I bet you it's pericarditis. It happens, you get an infection, and, you get run down, and, we'll treat it and you'll feel better. But the treatment for it, you have to make sure it's pericarditis, because you don't want to give this treatment to people who don't have pericarditis, because it's going to make things worse. And so she said, I need you to go get an echocardiogram. So I did that. I went and got an echocardiogram. And it was I don't know, next morning or 2 days later, something like that. I get there, and they're doing the echocardiogram. The echo tech, they won't tell you most of the time what's going on, right? They're told not to. They tell the doctor, the doctor wants to tell you. So, but me being a nurse, I thought, oh, well, maybe she'll tell me. So, and no, she would not say a word. I thought, well, okay, either she's just very tight-lipped, or nothing good is coming out of this. So I went to work that day like I normally do, and I was kind of short of breath for about, I don't know, a month or two. I'd just been really tired at work, and I thought, I'm sitting there at my desk, and I'm, trying not to nod off. And I thought, well, it's wedding planning and stuff like that. I'm just really, I got a lot going on, so no wonder I'm tired. I would get up, and I would take a few steps, and I kind of felt like I was going to faint. And I thought, oh, I just got up, too fast. So I'm, maybe a little bit dehydrated. I need to drink more water. And And I was sitting there training a new person, and I was short of breath talking to her, sitting there doing nothing physical. And I'm gasping for air. And I get a call from my cardiologist, and she says, you have pulmonary hypertension, and it's bad. It's pretty severe. And so this is where I stopped taking care of you because I don't know what to do. And, it's pretty unnerving when your cardiologist tells you, I don't know what to do. And so at that point, I actually left work. I told my boss what was going on, and I left work, and I had to go and try to figure out, well, what do I do with this information? And I know what pulmonary hypertension is because I'm a nurse and I studied it in school. And when I was in school, I'll never forget this. I was in a class, and they just mentioned pulmonary hypertension offhand, and they were talking about how it's a really serious disease. It causes heart failure, and that's what people die of. There's no cure. There's not really any good treatment, and you people just basically die. Get your affairs in order because you've got a couple years at best. And they were describing the symptoms, things like shortness of breath and feeling tired all the time and not being able to tolerate exercise and that kind of stuff. And I just remember sitting there in the chair at my desk in the classroom thinking, gosh, I wonder if that's what I have. And then I said, oh, don't be ridiculous. That's a really rare disease. It's like 2 per million people. What are the chances? That's stupid. And lo and behold, that is what I had. And I got to say, it was a mix of emotions because on the one hand, it was a devastating diagnosis. I didn't know a whole lot about like what the newest treatments were or how things had developed since I had been in nursing school. It was 10 years prior. So I didn't know. And I thought, well, this isn't good. But on the other hand, I was so validated because I knew there was something wrong with me. I knew there was something seriously wrong with me. And finally, I had a diagnosis. I have been seeing doctors since I was 22 years old. And people were telling me, oh, you're just a hypochondriac. Oh, stop pathologizing everything. You're just fat. And it's like, well, F all of you. I knew it. I knew there was something wrong. And it was just it was a relief to know that it wasn't all in my head and I wasn't making it up, because I can't tell you how many doctors I saw that was, their diagnosis for me, that you're just fat. It's all in your head. You're young, you're healthy. Don't worry about it. Go for a run. And so that was basically how I got my diagnosis. And then it was sort of a whirlwind of like, how do I navigate this?
Wow.
Do you want me to tell you that?
First of all, let us just take a little pause and just say, wow. Wow, Nicole. I know, I think I've been there. I think a few of us have been there that we know something is wrong. And for me, you talking about your story, you're kind of like feeding into me a little bit because I was telling and everybody in the previous episode, I just feel like I go to the doctor and it's just like, yeah, just eat more protein. And it's like, but I don't eat. I should be able to lose weight. I'm pretty active. I do this. No, but just keep doing. And it's like you feel like, dang, am I going crazy? Is it in my head? But you're seeing
Yeah.
that you do feel a certain way. So first of all, kudos to you for like advocating for yourself. I think if anything I have learned in the past 2 weeks has been, you have to advocate for yourself and you're not crazy. Clearly, there was something wrong with you. So I just want to say, first of all, kudos to you. I know it's like you said, you felt like as a nurse, you knew what that diagnosis was gonna do to your life. But as a person, as a human, you were like, I feel like finally somebody heard me, or finally I was validated. So I just want to say, I mean, very inspiring, very like it's that bad but that good, right? At the same time, which is
Mhm.
a weird thing to say.
Yeah, it's a weird place to be, where you're like, oh, thank God I have this horrible illness because I can't figure out what's wrong with me. And finally, somebody figured out what was wrong with me. And, you know, I, I had actually seen this cardiologist a couple of years before, because I was having trouble exercising. And she meant well. She wasn't trying to hurt me or delay a diagnosis. She just said, I think maybe you have exercise induced asthma because that's what everybody has in the Washington, D.C. area. And, you're going to struggle if you try to exercise outside in the summertime. Stay inside and exercise. Here's an inhaler. You're going to feel a lot better. And I really didn't. So, sometimes it takes more than one try to figure something out. Sometimes it takes more than one doctor. Sometimes it takes the same doctor to, kind of see more of you rather than just
Mhm.
the one time that they get to see 15 minutes of you. And if you're lucky and, try to pull it out of a hat and, get it right. And so you're right. You do need to advocate for yourself. And I mean, honestly, I have often wondered, how do people do this if they don't have any medical background? How do they navigate this? How do they figure things out and how to get their medication covered by their insurance companies or other programs? How do they, figure out how to change their lifestyle in very particular ways so that they can do better? And it's very, very hard. So I feel for people who, come into it with no background at all, in either health or in this illness in particular. And it's a big learning curve. And, you can do it, but you have to dedicate
Mhm.
some time and energy to learning as much as you can and, really working through it. And of course, if you're feeling garbage, you don't want to do that.
That's
You're
true.
exhausted. You don't want to, yeah. So,
The fact is too, not only do you have this new diagnosis, but you had also just got married. So now, like, you're like, okay, great, I got this diagnosis, but oh shit, I have this diagnosis. I have to now tell my new husband I have this diagnosis, and we're gonna have to figure that out together while we're also trying to figure us out together. Like, what was that journey like?
well, I told him what it was, and then I explained it to him. For people who don't know what pulmonary hypertension is, there are a number of different kinds of pulmonary hypertension. The type that I have is pulmonary arterial hypertension type 1, which is idiopathic, which means nobody knows why. They think it's kind of a 1-2 punch, that like maybe you're sort of genetically predisposed and then you get a virus or something that just kind of starts things in motion, triggers this process that just kind of gets out of control. And it's very similar to cancer. What happens is in the blood vessels in the lungs, the cells of the inside of the blood vessels, talk about specific, right? They start going crazy and they just keep replicating, reproducing. And so if you think of the inside of your blood vessel as being like a lumen, a hole for all of the blood to go through, and this is like a normal one, mine's like that, where you can barely see any light coming through that. And so everything's under high pressure, and it's
Mm.
high pressure going into the heart. The heart has to work harder to pump, and it eventually blows out the right side of your heart, and you get heart failure. And what they're finding out too is that it's more than just a heart lung disease. It affects all of your organs. It affects particularly your kidneys. There's a metabolic component. Your mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, does not work well. And so even if I ran my butt off and stopped eating and did all the things to do for losing weight, it's not going to happen because I can't burn energy. I can't utilize oxygen the same way that other people do. And so,
Mm.
you're just struggling and you can't get anywhere. And so anyway, had to explain all this to my husband. And he's had health challenges too, in his past, and so he wasn't completely shocked, by the idea that this could happen to somebody young. It happens, it happens younger. The vast majority of people diagnosed with this disease are actually young women in their 20s and 30s because they get pregnant and the stress on their body of having the baby pushes the pulmonary hypertension to like over a cliff, basically, and they get so sick, and a lot of them die. Or they have the baby and very shortly after they die. And that's how they find out that they have this illness, because you can compensate for a very long time before you finally fall off that cliff. So talking to him, he was shocked. He was traumatized. He was scared to death that I was going to drop dead. Even today, many years later, 10 years later, I'm still here. And, he's still, I think, has a little bit of PTSD from that time. And it's an ongoing challenge. And, since we had just gotten married, I told him, I was like, you didn't sign up for this. This is insane. Like, if you want a divorce, I will give you a divorce, no problem, And he, to his credit, he wanted to stick it out with me. So, um, I love this man, and he really came through for me in one of the very hardest times in my life. So that was the
Absolutely.
challenge.
He really came through with the
So,
promise of in sickness and in health.
He really did.
mhm,
He
mhm.
really did. Yeah. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's one thing if you're
Yeah.
like 80 years old, right? You expect to deteriorate and everybody gets old and falls apart. When you're 40,
Mhm.
I mean,
it's a little bit different.
a new marriage is hard on its own. Like you had the beginning of a relationship, a marriage is really hard because you're trying to get to know each other, how you vibe, everything. So the first few years are well, it's always hard, but the first few years, I'm sure it's very. I'm like, it's never gonna get easy. But to your point, to your point, not only did you just got married, you're gonna figure out your dynamics, and then on top of that, you're sick, and then so I could see where the wrong person would walk away from a situation like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You're supposed to be in the prime of your life, right? And yeah, it was just a curveball. So,
So one of the things that was an aha for me was Nicole, when I met you, was very matter of fact. Very matter of fact about this is what my diagnosis is. I'm gonna have a short lifespan. This is She was very matter of fact. And I remember her husband being like, stop talking like that. We're not that I just got you. I have waited for you. Stop talking like that. And she was like, listen, I'm a nurse. I know what the outcomes are. Like, and she was very she was very,
poor
very,
Josh.
very matter. Yeah. She was very, very matter of fact about it. And because I think just in knowing you, friend, it was like, I don't want you to be devastated by false hope of like all of a sudden now like there's going to be this magic cure that just fixes me.
Hmm.
So you're
Yeah.
sticking it out with me, but I want you to also live in the reality of it because, at that point you were having to live in the reality of like, I don't know what my lifespan will be. So I
Yeah.
have to deal with this the best way that I can. And I
Yeah.
know that one of the one of the things that bonded us was Nicole and I at the time had a very, very similar thought process around death. And so I remember we just happened to be in Savannah, sort of walking around. She and I were just, taking a walk around the neighborhood. And she just looked at me and she was like, I think I like you. And I was like, okay, so, so again, death is off the table, right? So death is off the table. Love that. You're not going to poison me. You like me. Great, great, great. And and I remember you looking at me. We were passing under. We were walking that
Hmm.
park, and it was beautiful trees and stuff. And I remember Nicole
Ash
turning to
moss.
me, and yeah, and she looked at me, Z, and she said, "This is going to be hard for them to process when my time comes, and I need you to be there to help them through that." and I'm going to tell you what my wishes are because I know that they can't hear it or receive that this is what I want. And from hearing your story, I know that you will advocate for me when I can't advocate for myself, that this is what I want. And I remember us taking additional laps around the park, and she just started talking to me about, you know, this is what I want for myself. These are the decisions, that type of thing. And I was like, you do know that they're going to hate me. And I said, but you, I said, but you
I'm willing to
also
take that
know.
risk.
At least for a little bit. At least for a little bit. At the beginning,
Yeah, yeah.
100%.
Now I was like, they're gonna hate me, and I said, but this is the biggest honor that you could ever give me is to allow me to be the person to execute what your wishes are when you are no longer able to do that. And I think and it's not even I think I know from that
Here, I'm going to
moment
throw
moving
this
forward.
burden on you. You can't even
It
say
was
no.
like,
Dying.
yeah.
It's a hard one.
it was it was It was weird because it did not feel like a burden because, having to have made that decision for my mom and then, my grandmother going through it not too long after that, Nicole and I talking about it. And I was like, I take this very seriously and I feel super honored that you trust me with that. And I promise, even though I know that they will be extremely angry with me, I will do whatever it is that you tell me to do because you get to choose what what your life and also what the, next part of your journey looks like. And, it's,
We should have
it was
another
odd, but
episode about that part, just the death. I did become a death
Part
doula,
two.
mm-hmm,
and yeah,
mm-hmm,
so
mm-hmm,
yeah, part two.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. And we definitely need to do a part two about the death doula because once you
yeah.
became a death doula, her mindset and perspective on things changed 100%. After she took that death doula class, I was like, who the hell is this? Like, who is this?
I didn't
her
even know that
the
was a
way that she
thing.
approached it's a thing.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
I just know
yeah, it's a
about the
thing. It's
regular
a thing.
doulas. I found that out a few
Mhm.
years ago, but I didn't know that was a thing.
From
Mhm.
one stage to the next,
Oh,
and
wow.
Mhm.
yeah,
We'll definitely have to do a part 2 on that one because I remember it was like towards the end of the COVID period and we hadn't seen each other that much after you were
yeah.
finishing up your deaf doula class. And I remember when we got back together and we reconnected and I was like, "Who the hell are you?" Cuz where is my princess of darkness? Because this lady is totally different. It's like, what in the hell is happening here? Okay, I love this. I love that we have a new, lease on life. I love it. What is happening? Who are you? Great. Do you not want me to, have your wishes changed now? Like, what's happening? Do I still have that responsibility? Is Josh good now? I don't know. So, but
He's never going to be good. So,
yeah.
Can imagine.
Ramon.
But yeah, right on. But one of the things though, when we did get to reconnect, is when you started talking about like, hey, there have been advancements now, and there are trials out here now that I can tap into. So Nicole, can you talk a little bit about like how you got into the
Uh,
trials and like what that has been like?
yeah, so I kind of fell backwards into that too, right in line with the rest of my life, just falling into different, I don't know, situations and opportunities. So, um, I just gotten married when I got diagnosed. And what that meant was we decided this was before diagnosis, that we were going to switch to my husband's insurance, health insurance. And my health insurance was through my job and it's traditional insurance model. My husband's health insurance is like an HMO kind of model. And uh, we had just done it because open enrollment was in October. We got married in October. It was, end of November, beginning of December at that point. So it hadn't even kicked in yet, right? Kicks in January 1st. And I'm like, oh shit, I don't have a doctor anymore because I'm, in this new system and I got to find a doctor. And what am I going to do? I don't even have a general practitioner to like refer me to anybody. So my husband went to his doctor, his general practitioner, and said, this my wife just has this diagnosis. We don't know what to do. Will you see her? So she saw me once and she got me in right away. It was amazing. And she hooked me up with a pulmonologist in the system who was scared to death when I walked through that door. I've never seen anybody so scared in my life. So, because she knew what the diagnosis was and she didn't know what to do because it's so rare that she just wasn't up to date. She had never seen a patient with it before. And so she was like going through the textbook while I'm in the office, kind of
That's
like reading to
crazy.
me. And like, she wrote me a prescription for a drug that come to find out they don't even really use anymore. So like it was crazy, right? And she said, this HMO has a relationship with the National Institute of Health because we don't have a specialist in our entire system who deals with this disease. So we're going to send you to the National Institute of Health to see the doctors there. And unfortunately, I lived just outside of Washington, D.C. National Institute of Health was only, 45 minutes from my house. So it wasn't a burden for me to get there. That's not the case for everybody. There are pulmonary hypertension centers scattered across the US that, have specialists who deal with this. A lot of times people will be assigned to a pulmonologist or a cardiologist. I was very fortunate that I have both on my team and this is all they do. They specialize in this. So shout out to the team at NIH. This was like the second time that my life was saved in so many months. So I went in and I was walking with a cane at that point because I couldn't stand on my own for very long. And this is, sort of like a visible part of the disability because I was very deconditioned. The markers for my heart showed that it was really stretched out of shape. And when your heart stretches out of shape, it can't beat efficiently. So I was basically in heart failure. I was in bad shape at that point. And, they started me on medications that had come up since I had been out of nursing school that I hadn't heard of before. And, my specialty in my job was drugs and medications. And so, it's humbling to see that there's a whole slew of them coming out that I didn't know anything about. And so I had to learn. And, I I think that it's really important that if you get a serious diagnosis and they're putting you on medications, find out why they're putting you on those medications and find out what those medications are doing for you, because that will help you in your navigating the system and speaking with your doctors and your nurses. And, heaven forbid, if you make a mistake with your medications and need to call poison control, then they're going to ask you, oh, why are you taking this medication? And so the answer, I don't know, is not going to help the nurse on the other end of the line figure out what needs to be done for you. So at least knowing why you're taking the medication and the name of it would be incredibly helpful. So, they did a ton of tests. The particular type of pulmonary hypertension I have is sort of a diagnosis of last resort and exclusion. They have to rule out a lot of stuff that could be causing just some other kind of pulmonary hypertension. And the reason that's important is because the treatments are different. So I did so many scans, MRIs, CT scans. They put you on an exercise machine, put this mask over your face, and you're breathing into this thing, and they've got you hooked up to all these wires and stuff, and they're telling you, okay, now walk as fast as you can, and they raise the incline on the thing, and like I went as long as I could and nearly passed out on the machine, because the doctor was like, you just gotta go a little bit longer so I could get the information I need. I'm just like dying there on the machine, and I know a lot of people can't. And, I was just lucky I didn't pass out and smash my face. So, we did a lot of that. And then they started me on medications. And, when they first started to treat pulmonary hypertension, really the only thing they could do for people was to give them warfarin, Coumadin. which is a blood thinner. And, the idea was that, there seems to be some kind of clotting disorder that goes along with pulmonary hypertension. So if you put people on a blood thinner, maybe they'll do a little bit better. But it doesn't really address the disease at all. And then there was another drug that came out. It's called Flolan. And Flolan was revolutionary at the time. It is a very difficult drug to be on. You need to have a port that goes into the heart, and the tubing goes basically into this port and delivers the medication directly to the heart. And it has to be kept cold. So you have to keep it in an ice pack that you wear on your hip all the time. You are hooked up to this. If you stop, if it becomes disconnected for any reason, you basically will die very quickly. And so that's very traumatic. And it is an incredible life change for people who have to go on this medication. But fortunately, if you have to get pulmonary hypertension, now is the time to do it, because there have been a lot of advancements. And so by the time I started getting treated, they were working on putting people on double therapy, which at the time was a drug called ambrisentan. And I think your listeners will like this, tadalafil, which is the generic name of Cialis, the boner drug. So they put you on massive quantities of the boner drug because it causes vasodilation. And so it makes your blood vessels bigger and you can, get more blood flow. So it turns out that, I had to go on this drug. There are lots of side effects. So it kind of sucked. But I started to feel better. And, when I was in nursing school, the lifespan from diagnosis was about 2 years. By the time I started getting treated, the average with treatment was 7 years. So we had made some strides there. And then there are some people who seem to live longer, and nobody was really sure why that was happening. So, they started kind of every once in a while, you'll start to see some more research on that and like learning how to distinguish between phenotypes of the disease, or, why some people are sicker than others. And they also put me in cardiopulmonary rehab, which is basically a supervised exercise plan. I had to drive up to NIH 3 times a week and work out with an exercise physiologist who is also a registered nurse. And I often will tell people that rehab is forever. Starting a program like that, a lot of people think that, you can do it for 6 weeks or 12 weeks, something like that, and then you don't have to do it anymore. I think people do a lot better when they keep up the exercise, and it's hard, but you learn how to accommodate and learn how to incorporate it into your life. And I think that people definitely start to do better when they're on a program like that and they continue it. So I did that, and at some point, it was about 6 months after the diagnosis, I can remember sitting there and thinking about it. And, I was on disability at that point. I wasn't working. And everybody's like, oh, that must have been great. You didn't have to go to work. You still got paid because I had a disability insurance policy. Thank God I signed up for that. You had one opportunity to sign up for it the day that you got hired and never again. So, and nobody at 30 years old thinks that they're going to be disabled. So a lot of people pass up that opportunity. My advice to everybody is if you have that opportunity, you take it. I don't care what it costs, you take it. But I was out on disability. I was exhausted during the day. I would sleep. The exercises wore me out. I had to change my diet completely. So I don't know if you know this about me, Shami, but I love salt. I love salt more than anything in this world. I would roll around in salt.
Oh.
I would salt the pizza. I love salt. And guess what? Can't have salt.
Oh man.
You have hypertension. So you have to go on a low salt diet. And so I went from like eating whatever I wanted salt wise to being restricted. They were like, oh, we'll be happy if you have like 1,500 milligrams a day. And That's not that much. If you're looking at processed food or anything like that, going to a restaurant, you're going to hit 1,500 milligrams of sodium basically with your first margarita. So,
Oh, wow.
that was a huge change. And, because I can never do anything halfway, I was like, well, I'll just go down to 1,000. So that was much harder, but I actually did feel better when I had less salt, and I had enough that I wasn't putting myself in danger from low sodium. But I felt better because you don't retain as much fluid. You just generally start to feel better. Your breathing's better. But anyway, so after all of these changes and medications and all the side effects, terrible headaches and things like that you get with this, about 6 months in, I decided I'm going to live instead of I'm gonna live like I'm going to live instead of living like I'm going to die. And it's always still there in the back of my head, but um, I think the attitude that you bring to it can really take you a long way. Is it going to be everything? No, but there is a mind body connection for sure. And I really think that people really need to hold on to that kind of hope and be persistent and like really persevere, because it can really help to have a positive attitude during these really horrible events that happen to us in our lives. So but anyway, in order to be treated at NIH and have doctors at NIH, you have to join a clinical trial. And so back to your question about the clinical trials, that's kind of how I got in. I needed a doctor. I was basically assigned to these doctors, and so I was going to do their trials. And the first trial that I got into, I'm actually still in this trial today. It's a natural history trial, so they're not giving you medications to change the course of your disease in this trial. They are basically following you on your journey. And so I go in 3 times a year, and they draw a bunch of labs. They do an echocardiogram. They make me do a 6-minute walk test. They make me do an exercise test. They collect all this data, and they compare it with other patients who have this illness, and they're trying to piece out like, okay, well, what happens? Why do some people do better than others? And how can we make it so everybody can do better? I also did a drug trial. It was a drug that has been out on the market for other things for many, many years. And so I felt pretty safe about taking that medication. And so I wasn't too scared about like side effects or, is this going to kill me kind of thing? Because it has a pretty good safety profile, and it's been out for a long time. And so I did that trial, and that required more lab draws and, going in and getting checked out and being followed, stuff like that. And I'm still on that medication to this day. And so, it's something that was a success and was helpful. And now a lot of patients are on this medication. You know, I actually, it's been a lot of ups and downs. Like there will be times when I'm feeling really good. For a while, I was actually running 5Ks. I even did I did 2 10Ks. One of them I had to stop and walk, but the other one I actually ran the whole time. It was the best day I've ever had running my entire life. I don't know how I made it, but I did. I've never been a runner, but I got through it. And it was just like the perfect storm of like, it was a beautiful day. It wasn't too hot, not too cold. Like the humidity was perfect. Everything was perfect. So I was able to finish. Then, it's a progressive disease. So you're going to start to deteriorate even with treatment over time. And so I did start to deteriorate. And I was telling my doctors, hey, I'm not feeling so good. And they're like, but you don't look like you're not feeling good. And, your lab work doesn't look too bad. And why are you, complaining? You're fine. And so I had to go in for a procedure where they basically stick a catheter through your neck. It's pretty gross. And down into your heart, and they measure the pressures of your pulmonary artery. And so they did that, and they actually sometimes they knock you out for it. Sometimes you're wide awake, and it's gross. And so this one I was awake because they made you do exercise while you're
That's
on the table with this thing stuck in your neck. God. So they make you like, use a I don't know what the thing. It's got pedals like a
A
bike, but you're
bike.
using your hands. So anyway, yeah. So it's weird, and so they could see that with exercise, I was actually doing a lot worse. And so they were like, okay, well, you're not falling off a cliff, but you're not doing as well as you were. And so they added a third medication, and that I felt a lot better for a couple of years. And then, the cycle starts again where I'm not feeling so good. And so I go back and I say, I'm not feeling so good. And they're like, well, but you're looking okay. And in the meantime, there had been a new drug that came out on the market that was supposed to be a game changer. And it's called sotatercept. It doesn't just dilate your blood vessels, it acts on a different pathway. And some people respond to it better than others. And I wanted this drug. Now, these drugs are specialty drugs, right? So if I was paying out of pocket for them, they'd be $300,000 a year. It's ridiculous. And
Mm.
nobody can afford this. And if you don't have health insurance, I don't know what you do. Do you just die? Like, this country is so messed up. And, my doctor was a little bit afraid to put me on it because it doesn't come free, right? Like, I don't mean money wise, like, nothing comes free. It's always a trade off. So, you might go on a medication that helps you in one way, but the side effects can be really serious in other ways. And so, one of the side effects of this new medication is that you can have a gastrointestinal bleed, you can bleed in the brain. And, I had to tell her, listen, we're here for a good time, not for a long time. Like,
Listen.
I don't want five, I want to. And, I want to be on this drug. I've, read about this drug. I've followed the trials. I couldn't be in those trials because I wasn't quite sick enough. They were only trying it on people who were like basically, that was sort of a comfort measure, last resort. And they found that they were doing better. And so she she called up one of the physicians who ran one of the trials to say like, oh, I don't know, what should I do with this woman? She's very, she's working, she's surviving, she's doing okay, she's pretty active. Like, I don't want to make her worse. What do I do? And she says, what are you waiting for? Put her on this drug before she gets worse and you can't do anything about it. And so that's how I started the drug. But you know what? It took a year of advocating for myself. So I'm not saying that like you should doctor shop or like every drug that you see an ad for on TV is going to be perfect for you. Sometimes the doctor does know better, like in their experience, that, maybe this isn't a good fit for you. But, you have to communicate with your team. You have to kind of figure out what you want, what your goals are, and communicate those goals and communicate with them about how you want to get there. And is it going to be possible all the time? No. Are you going to be happy all the time? No. But I mean, I think it really, you need to open the dialogue and you need to be informed enough on your own to be able to say, okay, but what about this? And I think that's basically what it comes down to in medicine, that, it's an art and a science, that no doctor is fallible, but they don't want to, or infallible, but they don't want to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to say, I don't know. That's terrifying. And, I think that they'll do the best that they can, but you have to really, you know, advocate for yourself and really understand what's going on,
Yeah.
for yourself. And one thing that can really help is, if you have a disease like this, find the association. 'Cause most of these diseases have associations of people who, have been there before you and who have paved the way to help you. And so the Pulmonary Hypertension Association, PHA, shout out to them because they do incredible advocacy work. They raise funds to help patients. They raise funds for research. They fund and qualify centers of excellence in pulmonary hypertension. And my girl Aquafina is now going to be a representative for the Pulmonary Hypertension Association. And I'm pretty excited about that because I just love her. So
That's
Come on,
amazing.
Aquafina.
You have given
on.
us so many good information, so much hope. You are like a mind reader, so you can add that to the list of all the great things you do.
I'm gonna put it on my LinkedIn.
You were over here answering questions as they were popping into my head, and I was like, "Well, dang it, what am I gonna ask her next?" Um,
Mhm.
so I'm
Just
like,
edit. Edit the question in.
added it at the end. But you have been Shamel, like you were not lying when you said that this woman is amazing, special, and all that plus more. So we
Mhm.
do, want to give you space, Nicole, to looking ahead. What would you tell somebody that gets a diagnosis of any kind that may feel like a death sentence in the moment? What would you tell
Yeah.
them? If they're listening or they have a family member, a friend that's going through it, what would be the thing that you
Mhm.
tell them so that to give them that hope and that it's not a death sentence always.
Yeah. So your journey is your own. And, you know, you may know somebody with the same disease who does not have the same outcome as you, who,
Mhm.
you know, and your outcome may be better or it may be worse, but there are some things that you can control and there are some things that you cannot. I cannot control the fact that I have pulmonary hypertension. I can control what I eat. I can control how much rest I get, and I can control to some degree my attitude. Is it always fantastic? No. Sometimes I'm just miserable and grumpy and, feeling like garbage. I think like we all do. But I think like overall, kind of keeping in mind that we're here and life to some extent is what you make of it. And so I do think that having that kind of view has helped me a lot. I think also a support system is really key. I was very fortunate that my husband, my father-in-law, my friends, my family have all been there for me. I feel like I could not have gotten this far without them. There were times when, I could not get up off the couch to cook. So my husband would cook for me. Helps that he likes to cook. Things like the laundry isn't getting done. I can't scrub the bathroom because the chemicals, in the cleaning products definitely aggravate my symptoms. So people help and people want to help. You have to open your heart to the possibility that you can accept help. And the other thing is you need to educate yourself. Whatever type of illness you have, educating yourself to the best of your ability, learning what you can, and discussing with your healthcare team to really try to find a good path forward is really key. And know that things change. You're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have to establish a new normal. And I was so resentful of that phrase when I first heard it. New normal. That's a bunch of BS. Like, I don't wanna.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
little things like I can remember seeing this pile of medication bottles and thinking, I don't want to. I don't want to take all this stuff. This is stupid. Why do I have to do this? I don't want to do it. But, then, okay, well, that may be, but we're here now. And so,
Right.
if I want to get the most out of life and do the best that I can, then I'm going to have to start to, take these medications. I'm going to have to rest. I'm terrible at resting. I'm go, go, go a lot. And, I have always burned the candle at both ends. And, it served me well until it didn't. And,
Mhm.
now I have to, you know, listen to my body and say, okay, you know what? I need to lay in bed all day today. And, I think that goes to the whole like invisibility of certain disabilities or
Mhm.
illnesses, right? Like, I don't think I look sick. And I don't think anybody would say, oh, yeah, she looks sick. And yet, so it's kind of easy for people to kind of brush it off like, she's just being dramatic. She's being, she's tired, but come on, who can be that tired? And, I just have to kind of let it go. Um, you can't control other people. You can only control how you show up in this world. And, you need
Mhm.
to take care of yourself. You only have this one body. Your your meat suit. You gotta take care of your meat suit. So
I've never heard that before. I've heard birthday suit, but not meat suit.
Meat suit is hilarious.
I love it
Hilarious.
though.
That's what I would say, that, your journey is your own, but to some extent it's what you make of it. And, other things you're not going to be able to control, and you just have to let it go.
I love that. So,
Sure.
Ross the Boss, I know it's gonna be really hard to go after that greatness, but
Mhm.
close us up.
Mhm.
Close us up.
Yeah. I think, just to tap into our family and friends who are listening, I think that the takeaway, hopefully, that you're getting from this is you get to choose your adventure in so many different spaces, and then certain things are completely out of your control, right? But you get one life to live, and you get to choose how you live it. Your life can definitely be an inspiration to others. So, for those who are navigating disabilities, um, it is nothing to be ashamed of. You did nothing wrong. There was nothing that caused that to be a thing for you, right? I think, for Nicole, we have talked about it a lot, is that sometimes people feel like they know your diagnosis better than you know your diagnosis. So then they're managing your illness or your symptoms because they know what, right? So a lot of times you have people who don't want to talk about it because they do not want to have to navigate the uninformed and then the stupid questions, because there are stupid questions that come from people. So hopefully, hearing Nicole's story and hearing about how an example of how you can advocate for yourself. And again, the doctors and those people work for you. So they are there to answer your questions. So if you have 45 questions, it is their job to sit and answer every one of those 45 damn questions that you have.
And write them down.
Period.
Yeah,
Write
100%.
them down so
Ask
that
them.
you know. Yeah.
Ask them. And then two,
I-
like she said, leaning into your network of, like, sometimes there are things that you won't understand, but having someone, to just call in and say, listen to this for me also. So there's an extra set of ears that is also hearing, because, especially, I can imagine getting a diagnosis like Nicole's, and your mind starts to wander that you maybe not hearing the other things that are being said in the room. So it is 100% okay to advocate for yourself. And this is one of many examples that you will hear this month during Disability Pride Month. And even after this month, this conversation will keep going. We're going to bring Nicole back to talk about being a death doula, because that is a thing, darling. And
We know now. We know
uh,
now.
it's a thing, right? But as we always do, we want to give Nicole an opportunity to share one of her favorite quotes with you all. And I know she has one primed up and ready to go. So, Nicole, what is the quote that you want to share with our family and friends that are listening today?
Okay, so all the college basketball fans out there already know this one, I'm sure, but I didn't know this one until I was sitting home on disability and watching obscene amounts of television. And I was watching 30 for 30, and they had an episode about Jim Valvano, Jimmy V, right? And he was the basketball coach for NC State for a number of years, and he got a cancer diagnosis, and he fought like hell, and he did well for a long time until it finally overtook him. But his advice to everybody was, don't give up, don't ever give up. And if you haven't seen that 30 for 30, I strongly recommend it. I think it's an inspiring story. And on the days when I think I don't want to do this anymore, why do I have to do this, why is every day a fight? I think about that, and it kind of gives me, one more day, one more push.
I love that. That is so beautiful. I don't think family and friends, I don't think there's anything left to be said. I just want to thank you, Nicole, for being here, for being a light. And we're going to take off with your words. Don't give up, keep going, and always stay unmuted. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Don't forget to like, share, follow, and subscribe, and always staying unmuted.